The first time my sister Rachel told someone I was adopted, I was 12 years old and standing in the middle of our 8th grade cafeteria, holding a tray of lukewarm pizza and chocolate milk. She said it loud enough for half the table to hear, her voice carrying that particular blend of cruelty and casual indifference that only siblings can master. "Oh, Jenny's not really my sister," she laughed, tossing her perfect blonde hair over her shoulder. "She's adopted. My parents just felt sorry for her." I can still taste the way that chocolate milk curdled in my mouth, still feel the way my fingers went numb around the plastic tray. The cafeteria didn't go silent. Life isn't a movie, but the kids at our table definitely heard. I watched their faces change, saw the way they looked at me differently, like I was suddenly less than I had been 30 seconds before. That was the first lie that would define the next 15 years of my life. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning, because you need to understand how deep this betrayal runs, how perfectly Rachel orchestrated my downfall, and why what happened next was not just justified, it was inevitable. My name is Jenny Morrison, and for 27 years I believed I knew exactly who I was. I was the younger daughter of Margaret and David Morrison, born 3 years after my sister Rachel, in the same hospital in Cedar Falls, Iowa. I had my father's dark hair and my mother's green eyes, and growing up, people always said I looked more like Dad, while Rachel was the spitting image of Mum. Rachel was everything I wasn't. Blonde, blue-eyed, effortlessly beautiful. She was homecoming queen, head cheerleader, valedictorian. She dated the quarterback, got accepted to Northwestern on a full scholarship, and could make our parents beam with pride just by walking into a room. I was the artsy one, the quiet one, the one who spent more time in the darkroom developing photographs than at parties. Don't get me wrong, my parents loved me. They came to every art show, celebrated every small victory, and never made me feel like I was living in Rachel's shadow. But shadows have a way of growing, especially when someone keeps making them longer. The adoption story started small. Rachel would whisper it to friends when she thought I wasn't listening. "Jenny's adopted," she'd say with a little shrug. "My parents never told her. They made me promise not to say anything, but..." And then she'd trail off, letting the lie breathe and grow. I confronted her about it when I was 15. We were in her bedroom, all white furniture and inspirational posters, and she was getting ready for yet another date. "Why do you keep telling people I'm adopted?" I asked, standing in her doorway. She looked at me in her vanity mirror, her hand pausing mid-mascara application. "Because it's true?" "No, it's not." "Jenny," her voice was soft, almost pitying. "Look at us. Really look. I have Mum's eyes, her nose, her smile. I have Dad's height, his laugh lines. You don't look like either of them." I wanted to argue, but the seed of doubt she'd planted years ago had been growing. I was shorter than everyone else in my family. My hair was nearly black, while theirs was various shades of brown and blonde. My eyes were green, but a different green than Mum's. Darker, more intense. "That doesn't mean anything," I said, but my voice sounded uncertain even to me. "Ask them," Rachel said, turning back to her mirror. "But don't say I told you. They made me promise to keep it secret until you were older. I never asked. I was too afraid of the answer. College was supposed to be my escape. I went to the University of Iowa, studying photography and art history, finally finding my own space away from Rachel's perfection. But she was at Northwestern, close enough that our social circles occasionally overlapped, especially during summer breaks when we'd both come home to Cedar Falls. The adoption story followed me. It had grown in the telling, becoming more elaborate with each repetition. Now, I wasn't just adopted. I was the daughter of teenage parents who couldn't care for me. Or I was from a broken home, rescued by the generous Morrisons. Sometimes I was from another country entirely, a war orphan who'd been saved by American charity. Rachel never told the same version twice, but she always told it with such conviction, such casual certainty that people believed her. And why wouldn't they? She was Rachel Morrison, the girl who'd never lied about anything important in her life, the one who'd gotten into Northwestern, who was dating a law student, who had her whole life mapped out in perfect increments. I tried to fight it at first. I'd correct people, show them family photos, point out the similarities between me and our parents. But Rachel was better at this game than I was. She'd laugh and say, "Of course they have photos together. Jenny's been part of our family since she was 6 months old. And of course she looks like them. People grow to resemble the people they're raised by. It's psychological." She always had an answer, always had a way to make my truth sound like denial. The worst part wasn't that people believed her, it was that I started to believe her too. Every family gathering became an exercise in searching for proof. I'd study my reflection next to my parents, looking for evidence of belonging. I'd analyse old photos, searching for the moment when I'd been inserted into their lives. I'd lie awake at night, wondering if somewhere out there, my real parents were wondering what had happened to me. By the time I graduated college, the story had become gospel truth in our social circle. I was the adopted Morrison daughter, the one who'd been graciously taken in by this perfect family. People would look at me with that particular mixture of pity and admiration, reserved for tragic figures who'd overcome adversity. "It's so wonderful what your parents did for you," they'd say. "You're so lucky they chose you." And I'd smile and nod, because what else could I do? Deny it? Insist that I was really their biological daughter? That would just make me look delusional. Rachel graduated summa cum laude and got engaged to Marcus, the law student she'd been dating since sophomore year. Their engagement party was held at the country club, with 200 guests and a string quartet. I was the maid of honour, standing beside my sister in a dusty rose dress that made my skin look sallow, watching her accept congratulations from people who'd known me my entire life, but still whispered about how generous my parents were to treat me like their own daughter. I should have seen what was coming. I should have realised that Rachel's cruelty had been building towards something, that 15 years of systematic undermining was leading to a crescendo. But I was too busy trying to figure out who I was supposed to be, too caught up in the lie she'd woven around my identity. The wedding was 6 months later. It was perfect, of course. Rachel had been planning it since she was 12 years old. White roses, ivory silk, a reception at the same country club where she'd gotten engaged. I watched from the front row as she walked down the aisle on Dad's arm, radiant in her great-grandmother's veil, and felt that familiar pang of inadequacy. Would I ever be that beautiful, that confident, that worthy of such love and celebration? During the reception, I was standing by the bar, nursing a glass of champagne and watching couples swirl across the dance floor, when I overheard a conversation that changed everything. "I just think it's so sweet that they included Jenny in the wedding party," said Mrs. Patterson, who'd been friends with my mother since before I was born. "Especially considering..." "Considering what?" asked her companion, a woman I didn't recognise. "Well, you know, the whole situation with her real parents. Such a tragic story. Margaret told me the whole thing in confidence years ago, but I think enough time has passed that I can share it. Jenny's mother was only 16 when she had her, a drug addict who died in a car accident when Jenny was just 6 months old. The father was never in the picture. Margaret and David had been trying to have a second child for years, and when they heard about this poor baby who needed a home," she sighed dramatically, "they opened their hearts immediately. But they made the decision early on to never tell Jenny the truth. They thought it would be too traumatic for her." My champagne glass slipped from my fingers and shattered on the marble floor. The sharp sound cut through the music and conversation, and suddenly everyone was looking at me. I mumbled an apology and fled to the bathroom, my mind reeling. My mother had told Mrs. Patterson the story. My mother, who had never lied to me about anything important in my life. The woman who'd held me when I cried, who'd driven me to art lessons and dance recitals, who'd helped me with homework and relationship problems and all the mundane crises of growing up. She'd been carrying this secret for 24 years, and she'd shared it with her friend like it was just another piece of gossip. I locked myself in a bathroom stall and called my mother from the wedding reception. "Mum," I said when she answered, my voice shaking, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth." There was a pause. "Jenny, are you all right? You sound upset. Am I adopted?" The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Then I heard her sigh, a sound so deep and weary it seemed to come from her bones. "How did you find out?" she asked quietly. The world tilted. Everything I'd thought I knew about myself, about my family, about the last 24 years of my life crumbled in an instant. I was sitting in a bathroom stall at my sister's wedding, wearing a dusty rose bridesmaid dress and learning that every single person in my life had been lying to me. "Why?" I whispered. "Why didn't you tell me?" "We were going to," she said, "when you were older. But then you seemed so settled, so happy, and we thought it would be easier if you never knew. You were our daughter from the moment we held you, Jenny. It didn't matter where you came from, but it did matter. It mattered because I'd spent years defending myself against Rachel's lies, never knowing they were actually the truth. It mattered because I'd felt like an outsider in my own family, always wondering why I was different, why I didn't quite fit. It mattered because everyone else had known, and I'd been living in a carefully constructed fantasy. "Does Rachel know?" I asked. Another pause. "Yes. We told her when she was 12 because we thought she might figure it out on her own. We made her promise to keep it secret." 12. She'd known since she was 12 years old, and instead of keeping the secret, she'd weaponized it. She'd used it to make me feel small and uncertain and less than. She'd turned my origin story into a tool of manipulation, a way to keep me in my place. I hung up the phone and sat in that bathroom stall for 20 minutes, letting the full weight of the betrayal settle over me. Not just my parents' betrayal, though that was devastating enough, but Rachel's. My sister, who was supposed to love me and protect me, had spent half our lives systematically destroying my sense of self. When I finally emerged from the bathroom, I found Rachel in the bridal suite, touching up her makeup before the cake cutting. She was alone, humming softly to herself, absolutely glowing with happiness. "Jenny," she said when she saw me, "there you are. I was looking for you. Are you ready for the cake cutting? I need my maid of honor beside me." I stared at her. This beautiful, cruel woman who'd shared a house with me for 18 years, who'd been my closest companion and my worst enemy, who'd shaped my entire identity around a lie. "I know," I said quietly. She didn't ask what I meant. She didn't pretend not to understand. The smile faded from her face, and for a moment, I saw something that might have been regret. "Jenny," she started. "Don't." I held up a hand. "Don't you dare apologize. Don't you dare try to explain. You've known the truth about me since you were 12 years old, and you've spent the last 15 years using it to torture me." "I never meant—" "Yes, you did." My voice was steady, cold. "You meant every word, every lie, every time you made me feel like I didn't belong, like I wasn't really part of this family. You knew exactly what you were doing." Rachel's wedding makeup was perfect, but I could see the real her underneath it, the calculating, competitive woman who'd never been able to stand sharing the spotlight with anyone, even her own sister. "What are you going to do?" she asked. I looked at her for a long moment, this person who'd been both my closest family member and my greatest tormentor. "I'm going to finish being your maid of honor. I'm going to smile and cut the cake and give the speech I wrote about what a wonderful sister you are. And then I'm going to go home and figure out how to live with the fact that my entire life has been a lie. Jenny, and if you ever try to contact me again after today, I will tell everyone exactly what kind of person you really are. I will tell them how you've been spreading lies about me for 15 years, how you've manipulated and gaslit me, how you've turned my own adoption into a weapon against me. Do you understand?" She nodded, her eyes filling with tears that I knew were more for herself than for me. I walked out of that bridal suite and finished my duties as maid of honor. I smiled and cut the cake and gave a speech about sisterly love and lifelong bonds. I danced with the groomsmen and posed for pictures and hugged guests who told me how proud my parents must be of both their daughters. And then I went home and began the long process of rebuilding my life from scratch. I moved to Minneapolis 6 months later, partly for a job opportunity, but mostly to put distance between myself and the family that had loved me enough to lie to me for 24 years. I threw myself into my photography career, started going to therapy, and slowly, painfully, began to figure out who Jenny Morrison really was beneath all the layers of deception and manipulation. I didn't speak to Rachel for 3 years. I had minimal contact with my parents, checking in occasionally but keeping our conversation surface level. I needed space to heal, to understand what family even meant when the foundation of yours was built on secrets and lies. But here's the thing about revenge. Sometimes it comes when you're not even looking for it. Sometimes it arrives dressed up as justice, as the natural consequences of someone else's choices. Sometimes it knocks on your door wearing a lawyer's suit and carrying a briefcase full of documents that change everything. That's exactly what happened on a Tuesday morning in March, when I was 32 years old and finally starting to feel like I'd found my footing in the world. The lawyer's name was Mr. Brennan, and he was representing the estate of Eleanor Morrison, my great-aunt, my father's sister, who died 2 months earlier at the age of 87. I'd only met her a few times when I was young, but I remembered her as a sharp, elegant woman who'd never married and had spent her life building a small fortune through careful investments and real estate. "Miss Morrison," Mr. Brennan said as we sat in his downtown office, "I'm here to inform you that you are the sole beneficiary of your great-aunt's estate." I stared at him. "I'm sorry, what?" "Your great-aunt Eleanor left everything to you. The house, the investments, the life insurance policy, everything. The estate is worth approximately $2.3 million. The room seemed to tilt. That can't be right. She barely knew me. And what about Rachel? What about my parents? Mr. Brennan consulted his file. According to Miss Morrison's will, which was updated 6 months before her death, she specifically wanted to leave her estate to the grandchild who was chosen by love rather than born by chance. She left a letter explaining her decision, if you'd like to read it. He handed me an envelope with my name written in careful cursive. Inside, in Eleanor's distinctive handwriting, was a letter that made my hands shake as I read it. "My dear Jenny, if you are reading this, then I am gone, and you are learning about an inheritance that might surprise you. I want you to know that this decision was not made lightly, and it was not made recently. I have watched you your entire life, watched the way you struggled to find your place in a family that loved you but couldn't quite figure out how to help you belong. I have watched your sister, Rachel, too, and I have seen the cruelty she has shown you over the years. I know about the lies she has told, the way she has used your adoption as a weapon against you. You see, my dear, your parents are not the only ones who have been keeping secrets. I have been watching and waiting, and I have been making my own plans. Your sister has always assumed that her birthright would guarantee her a place in this family's legacy. She has never understood that love and loyalty are earned, not inherited. You, on the other hand, have proven yourself to be everything we could have hoped for in a daughter, a granddaughter, a niece. You have shown grace under pressure, resilience in the face of adversity, and a strength of character that has nothing to do with blood and everything to do with the choices you make. I am leaving you this inheritance, not because I feel sorry for you, but because I believe you are the most deserving member of our family. Use it wisely, and remember that being chosen is far more powerful than being born. With all my love and admiration, Aunt Eleanor." I sat in that lawyer's office and cried, not just for Eleanor, who'd been watching over me in ways I'd never realised, but for the validation I'd never known I needed. For the first time in my life, someone had chosen me not out of pity or obligation, but because they believed I was worthy. The news of my inheritance spread through my family like wildfire. My parents called within hours, their voices a mixture of shock and confusion. They'd expected Eleanor to leave her money to Rachel, or to divide it between us, or to give it to charity. They'd never imagined that she'd give it all to the adopted daughter who'd been estranged from the family for 3 years. But it was Rachel's reaction that I'll never forget. She showed up at my apartment in Minneapolis 2 days after the lawyer's visit, standing in my hallway with red eyes and a face blotchy from crying. She looked terrible. Her perfect hair was unwashed. Her designer clothes were wrinkled, and her makeup was smeared. "Jenny," she said when I opened the door, "we need to talk." I'd imagined this moment for 3 years, wondered what I'd say if I ever saw her again. But now, faced with the reality of her presence, I felt surprisingly calm. "Do we?" I asked. "Please, can I come in?" I stepped aside and let her into my apartment, watched her take in the space I'd created for myself. It was small, but beautiful, filled with my photographs and art, a space that was entirely mine. "I heard about Eleanor's will," she said without preamble. "I figured you had—" "It's not fair, Jenny. That money should be split between us. She was our great aunt, part of our family legacy. You can't just take it all." I studied her face, looking for any sign of the regret or remorse I'd hoped to see 3 years ago. There was none. Even now, even after everything, she was still thinking only of herself. "I didn't take anything," I said quietly. "Eleanor chose to give it to me because she felt sorry for you, because you're adopted and she thought you needed help." Rachel's voice was rising, taking on that familiar edge of cruelty. She was a lonely old woman who got sentimental about a sob story. "That doesn't mean you deserve her money." And there it was. After everything that had happened, after all the pain and betrayal and years of separation, she was still using my adoption as a weapon, still trying to make me feel small and unworthy and less than. But something had changed in me over the last 3 years. I'd learned who I was beyond the lies and manipulation. I'd built a life based on my own choices, my own values, my own worth. And I was no longer the uncertain girl who'd spent her childhood defending herself against Rachel's cruelty. "You're right," I said calmly. "I am adopted. And for 32 years, I've been told that makes me less than you. Less deserving of love, of belonging, of respect. You've spent half our lives making sure I never forgot that I wasn't really part of this family." Rachel's face flushed. "That's not—" "But here's what I've learned," I continued, my voice steady and sure. "Being chosen is more powerful than being born. Eleanor chose me. She looked at both of us, at the people we'd become, at the choices we'd made, and she chose me. Not because she felt sorry for me, but because she believed I was worthy. Jenny, please, I need this money. Marcus and I are getting divorced, and I have legal bills, and I'm trying to buy him out of the house. I can't afford to lose everything." For a moment, I felt a flicker of the old sympathy, the old desire to help my sister no matter how she'd treated me. But then I remembered 15 years of systematic cruelty, of lies told with casual indifference, of moments when she'd chosen to tear me down rather than build me up. "You made your choices," I said. "You chose to spend our entire childhood making me feel like I didn't belong. You chose to use my adoption as a weapon against me. You chose to turn my origin story into a tool of manipulation. And now, you're choosing to stand in my apartment and tell me I don't deserve what Eleanor left me. I'm your sister," she said, and for the first time her voice broke. "We're family." "Are we?" I asked. "Because family members don't usually spend 15 years psychologically torturing each other. Family members don't usually turn their sister's deepest insecurities into weapons. Family members don't usually show up after 3 years of silence just to demand money." Rachel was crying now, ugly sobs that made her whole body shake. "I'm sorry," she gasped. "I'm sorry about everything. I was young and stupid and jealous, and I didn't know how to deal with having a sister who was so different from me. I was scared that our parents loved you more because you were special, because you were chosen and I was just born. I was scared that being the biological daughter didn't matter." It was an apology I'd waited 15 years to hear, and it was far too late. "I'm sorry you were scared," I said. "I'm sorry you felt threatened, but your fear doesn't excuse 15 years of cruelty. Your insecurity doesn't justify the way you systematically destroyed my self-worth, and your financial problems don't entitle you to my inheritance. Please," she whispered. "I'm begging you. I'll do anything. I'll tell everyone the truth about what I did. I'll make public apologies. I'll go to therapy. I'll do whatever you want. Just please don't let me lose everything." I looked at her. This woman who'd been my closest companion and my worst enemy, who'd shaped my entire identity around a lie, who'd spent decades making me feel like I didn't deserve love or belonging or respect. And I felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no desire for revenge. Just a deep, profound indifference. "I'm not going to give you the money," I said quietly. "Not because I want to punish you, but because Eleanor made her choice, and I'm going to respect it. She saw something in me that she didn't see in you, and that's not my fault or your fault or anyone's fault. It just is." Rachel's face crumpled. "So that's it? You're just going to let me lose everything?" "You're not losing everything," I said. "You're losing money that was never yours to begin with. You still have your education, your skills, your ability to rebuild your life. You still have our parents, who love you and will help you through this. You still have friends and opportunities and a whole future ahead of you. But I don't have you," she said, and for the first time she sounded like the sister I'd once loved. "No," I agreed. "You don't have me. You gave that up a long time ago." She left my apartment that day, and I never saw her again. I heard through my parents that she'd moved to California, that she'd started over with a new job and a new life. I heard that she'd eventually remarried, that she'd had children, that she'd built something good for herself. And I was glad for her in a distant way, the way you might be glad for a stranger who'd overcome adversity. The inheritance changed my life, but not in the way you might think. I didn't quit my job, or buy a mansion, or travel the world. Instead, I used it to build something meaningful, a non-profit organisation that provides art therapy and creative programmes for adopted children and foster kids. I wanted to create the kind of support system I'd never had, a place where kids could explore their identities and find their worth without having to defend themselves against the people who were supposed to love them. I called it the Eleanor Morrison Foundation, and it's become everything I'd hoped for and more. We've helped hundreds of children over the past 5 years, giving them tools to understand their worth, to build their confidence, to know that being chosen is indeed more powerful than being born. My parents and I eventually rebuilt our relationship, though it took years of therapy and honest conversations about trust and truth and the weight of secrets. They're proud of what I've built, proud of the person I've become, and they've learned to see my adoption not as a source of shame or pity, but as the beautiful beginning of a love story that spans decades. I'm married now to a wonderful man named David, who knows my whole story and loves me not despite it, but because of it. He understands that my journey has made me who I am, that my struggles have given me strength, that my pain has taught me compassion. We're expecting our first child in the fall, and I know with absolute certainty that this baby will grow up knowing exactly where they came from and how much they're loved. Sometimes people ask me if I regret not sharing the inheritance with Rachel, if I ever feel guilty about keeping it all for myself. The truth is, I don't think about it much anymore. Eleanor made her choice based on a lifetime of observation, based on the people we'd become and the choices we'd made. She saw something in me that she valued, something that had nothing to do with biology and everything to do with character. Rachel spent our entire childhood trying to make me feel like I didn't belong, like I was less than, like I was somehow fraudulent. She used my adoption as a weapon, turned my origin story into a tool of manipulation, and convinced me that I was living on borrowed love. But in the end, it was my adoption that saved me. It was the fact that I'd been chosen, not born, that mattered most. Eleanor saw that, understood it, and decided to honour it in the most meaningful way possible. The last time I spoke to Rachel was 5 years ago, when she called to tell me she'd gotten engaged again. She sounded happy, settled, like she'd found her peace. She didn't ask about the money, didn't try to relitigate the past. She just wanted to share her good news with someone who'd once been important to her. "I'm happy for you," I told her, and I meant it. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, "for everything. I know it's too late, but I'm sorry." "I know," I said. "I forgive you." And I did, not because she deserved it, but because carrying that anger was exhausting. and I had better things to do with my life than hate someone who'd already lost the power to hurt me. The revenge I'd imagined for so many years, the dramatic confrontation, the moment when I'd finally make her pay for everything she'd done, never came. Instead, what came was something far more powerful. The quiet satisfaction of living well, of building something meaningful, of proving that worth isn't determined by the circumstances of your birth, but by the choices you make every single day. I think about Eleanor's letter sometimes, about her words. Being chosen is far more powerful than being born. She was right, but not in the way I originally understood. It wasn't just that I'd been chosen by my parents, or even by Eleanor. It was that I'd chosen to rise above the lies and manipulation, chosen to build a life based on my own values, chosen to turn my pain into purpose. Rachel had spent our entire childhood trying to convince me that I was somehow less legitimate than she was, that my place in the family was conditional, that I was living on borrowed love. But she was wrong about everything. Love isn't borrowed, it's earned and given and grown. Family isn't just about blood, it's about the people who choose to stand by you when everything falls apart. The foundation has become my life's work, my way of ensuring that no other adopted child has to go through what I went through. We run support groups, art therapy sessions, mentorship programs. We help kids understand that their stories don't define their worth, that being chosen is indeed a gift, not a consolation prize. Last month, I got a letter from a 15-year-old girl named Maya who'd been in our program for 2 years. She wrote, "Before I came to the foundation, I used to think being adopted meant I wasn't good enough for my real parents to keep me. Now I know it means I was good enough for my parents to choose me on purpose. Thank you for helping me understand the difference." That letter is framed on my office wall, right next to Eleanor's original letter to me. They remind me every day why this work matters, why turning pain into purpose is the most powerful form of revenge against those who tried to diminish us. I never expected forgiveness to feel like victory, but it does. I never expected indifference to feel like freedom, but it does. I never expected that the inheritance would matter less than the letter that came with it, but it does. Rachel took 15 years of my life, filled them with doubt and insecurity and shame, but in the end, she gave me something even more valuable. She taught me that my worth doesn't depend on anyone else's opinion of me. She taught me that family is something you build, not something you're born into. She taught me that the most powerful response to cruelty isn't more cruelty. It's becoming the person they never believed you could be. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if she'd made different choices, if she'd chosen to be my ally instead of my tormentor, if she'd used her knowledge of my adoption to help me understand my place in the family instead of undermining it. We might have been close. We might have been friends. We might have built something beautiful together. But she didn't make those choices, and I can't change that. All I can do is make my own choices, and I choose to build a life that honours the love I was given, the opportunities I've been offered, and the responsibility I feel to help others find their own worth. David often asks me if I miss having a sister, and the answer is complicated. I miss the sister I thought I had when we were very young, before the lies started, when we would play dress-up in my mother's closet, and build forts in the living room, and whisper secrets under the covers during sleepovers. I miss the relationship we might have had if she'd chosen kindness over cruelty, but I don't miss the Rachel who actually existed, the one who weaponized my insecurities and turned my family history into a tool of manipulation. I don't miss walking on eggshells, wondering when the next blow would come. I don't miss defending my right to exist in my own family. The baby is kicking as I write this, a strong, insistent reminder that new life brings new possibilities. This child will grow up knowing exactly where they came from, will never have to question their place in our family, will never have to wonder if they're loved conditionally. They'll know their story from the beginning, and they'll understand that every family story is unique and valuable. I've already started planning the nursery, thinking about the photos I'll hang on the walls, the stories I'll tell, the values I'll try to instill. I want this child to understand that love comes in many forms, that families are built in many ways, that being chosen, whether through adoption, marriage, friendship, or simple human connection, is always something to be celebrated. Eleanor's money gave me the resources to build the foundation, but Eleanor's wisdom gave me something more important, the understanding that our worth isn't determined by the circumstances of our birth, but by what we do with the life we're given. Rachel thought she was telling everyone a shameful secret when she revealed my adoption. She thought she was diminishing me, making me smaller, proving that I didn't really belong. Instead, she was telling everyone the most beautiful thing about me, that I was wanted so much that someone chose me, fought for me, made me legally and permanently theirs. She thought my adoption was my weakness. It turned out to be my greatest strength. The foundation is hosting its annual gala next month, a celebration of all the children we've served and all the families we've helped build. This year's theme is Chosen Family, and I'll be giving the keynote speech to an audience of adoptive parents, social workers, and kids who are finding their own way in the world. I know what I'm going to tell them. I'm going to tell them that being chosen is the most powerful force in the universe. I'm going to tell them that the people who try to make us feel small usually do so because they feel small themselves. I'm going to tell them that the best revenge against those who doubt our worth is living a life that proves them wrong. And I'm going to tell them about Eleanor, about a woman who watched quietly for decades before making the choice that changed everything. I'm going to tell them that sometimes justice comes dressed as an inheritance. Sometimes love comes disguised as vindication, and sometimes the people who see our true worth are the ones we least expect. Rachel gave me 15 years of pain, but Eleanor gave me a lifetime of purpose. In the end, love really did win, not the conditional love that had to be earned or defended, but the unconditional love that sees worth where others see deficit, strength where others see vulnerability, choice where others see chance. That's the story I tell now when people ask about my family, about my past, about how I built the life I have. It's not a story about revenge, though there's justice in it. It's not a story about money, though the inheritance matters. It's a story about understanding that our worth isn't determined by the people who try to diminish us, but by the choices we make in response to their diminishment. It's a story about learning that being chosen really is more powerful than being born. And it's a story about the quiet, profound satisfaction that comes from building a life that honours not just who chose you, but who you choose to become. In the end, that was the greatest revenge of all, becoming someone that Eleanor would be proud to call family, someone who proved that her faith was justified, someone who used her gift not just to build a better life for myself, but to help others understand their own immeasurable worth. Rachel wanted to make me feel like I didn't belong anywhere. Instead, she helped me understand that I belonged everywhere love was valued over blood, choice over chance, character over circumstance. She thought she was writing my story, but in the end, I got to write my own. And what a beautiful story it turned out to be.